Watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game, and we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest Alderman Howard Brookins Jr., and he is joined by First Assistant Bob Milan, and they are both joining me because they are running for State's Attorney in the Democratic primary. That's State's Attorney of Cook County. It is a 6-person race at the moment. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the other candidates. So this is not a debate. It is an informal discussion of the issues as we proceed to the primary, which is on February 5th, 2008. And we've had each of these gentlemen on separately and grilled them, and now we're going to give them a chance to talk about the issues with each other. And once more, as we get close to that primary, we're about a month away as we tape this on January 6th, 2008. Alderman Brookins, as everybody knows, is an alderman, of course, Chicago alderman. He has spent 2 decades in the law. Spent some time as assistant state's attorney, about 2 years, is that right?
Right, a little less.
A little less, an assistant public defender, about a year,
right,
and a special assistant attorney general.
Right.
He was a founding partner of Brookins and Wilson. Wilson has now left to become a judge. You would like to leave and let the law firm go and become a state's attorney. Second-term alderman, as I said, from the South Side, the 21st Ward. Educational background, Mendel Catholic High School, Southern Illinois University, Carbondale as an undergrad, Northern Illinois University Law School. He lives with his wife and their 2 kids on the south side of Chicago. Your motto is restoring sense of justice, restoring the sense of integrity and justice to the criminal justice system.
Correct.
Got that right. You can find more about the alderman on www.brookinsforjustice.com. Bob Milan, to my literal right, not necessarily to my philosophical right, has been with the state's attorney's office for about 21 years.
That's right.
Coming in there right out of law school, before law school,
as a law clerk,
as a law clerk,
right,
and then started out way down there in traffic court. Is that
That's
right?
Right?
Assistant state's attorney, and now he is was going on 5 years now as first assistant to State's Attorney Dick Devine. Right?
That's correct.
Advising Dick Devine regarding day-to-day operations, supervising about 900 attorneys, 100 investigators, 500 support staff. Prior positions: chief deputy to Dick Devine, supervisor felony review, first chair felony trial division. Has to his credit 70 felony jury trials to verdict, 8 misdemeanor jury trials to verdict. He has worked with State's Attorney Dick Devine to set up videotaping of homicide interrogations, worked on the wrongful confessions issue. Might talk about it, spent a lot of time getting that right and becoming a bit of a teacher around the country, right?
That's correct.
On that issue, on how to get rightful confessions and how to get rightful convictions.
How to spot wrongful confessions and how to avoid wrongful convictions.
All right. Grew up in Beverly on the southwest side, the 19th Ward, known often as the Tommy Hines Ward. St. Barnabas Grade School, St. Ignatius High School, Loyola University of Chicago undergrad, Chicago Cat Law School, and he lives with his wife, Renee, their 3 kids in Glenview. He is 46 years old and would like to be the state's attorney of Cook County. All right, gentlemen, as we think about this race and think about the major issues, one major issue is what's the role of Dick Devine in this race and Dick Daley, because there's a history that they have because of the history of torture of accused defendants, and that is always in the news, it seems recently, whether we're dealing with people who were tortured and brought lawsuit, and the city is now looking at paying out a combined total of about $20 million to 4 individuals. So whether we're talking about that, we're talking about why that happened, we're talking about do we know everything we should know. The state's now mayor, Richard Daley, was the state's attorney from 1980 to 89 when some of this was going on. And his first assistant was Dick Devine from 80 to 83. So Alderman Howard Brookins is,
I think,
is Dick Daley and are Daley and Devine sort of on the ballot?
I think all of them have a part in it. Not only Daley, where it happened, where Brezek wrote the letter, but you also have Devine, and you also have Jack O'Malley, and you also have Cecil Partee. Nobody did anything about this issue. All of them had an opportunity to do it. Dick Devine, when he was elected state's attorney, at that time the statute of limitations had not run on these tortures, and so it could have been stopped by him. But clearly the predecessors had a role in not doing anything, and I've heard the mayor's response to it, and the people have to judge whether or not that was adequate as to what happened back then. Needless to say, there were several people that could have caught it even after Mayor Daley was out of the office of the Cook County State's Attorney. Someone could have stepped up, did something about it. Nobody did. The feds have not stepped up with respect to this. And it has cost the city $20 million so far, but it's cost the county even more money. Tony Parika puts it at $66 million on the county side. Clearly we have $7 million that was just thrown out the window for a special prosecutor's report to say that the statute of limitations were gone and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Do you agree with Parika on that criticism and estimate of $73 million?
I don't know how he comes up with that amount, the 66 on the county side, but clearly the money on the city side is real. Okay. It is real judgments, real money spent. Not only the dollar amount, but it's the immeasurable, the intangible amount that it has cost the Chicago Police Department, that it has cost the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, that it has cost the justice system itself is a problem.
Bob Milan, Dick Daley, Dick Devine, they on the ballot?
They're not. It's a smokescreen in regards to this election, Jeff. This is 2008.
Who's putting up the smokescreen?
Well, Howard, for one, and others. Anybody that brings up Burge in this day and age, it's ridiculous. And here's why. In our administration, in the 9 years that I've been in leadership, we've indicted over 150 police officers from crimes ranging from theft to first-degree murder. Recently, I led the investigation in regards to the 7 special operations officers in Chicago who are absolutely out of control. And that's what's going on today. And if Howard or anybody else wants to go back and talk about Burge in 1982 and what went on, that's fine. None of us think that was acceptable, and none of us would stand for that.
Then Devine should have did something about it, and Bob Milan could have done something about it if he was in leadership nine years ago.
What could Bob Milan have done?
If he was in leadership 9 years ago, the case could have been handed off, and they could have processed. Some of those statute of limitations expired during the term of the special prosecutor. At the time they appointed the special prosecutor, Bob Milan, by his admission, was in leadership at that particular time and could have done something about it.
What Howard has left out what Howard has left out is the fact that Judge Beeble ruled that because there was a conflict of interest, because State's Attorney Devine's firm at some point represented Burge, our office could not investigate these cases. He ruled that in 2003. So even though I offered to handle the case myself without State's Attorney Devine, and I would act as the State's Attorney regarding the Burge case, we weren't allowed to do so, and Howard left that out. Fact of the matter is,
why did it take to 2003?
Why did it have to take? 2008. It's 2008, and the issue is this: in the last, under Dick Devine, the last 12 years, what did we do about police corruption? And the answer is a lot.
Because nothing happened under Burge. It allowed the police corruption to fester, which is why we have the SOS and all of those people now, because nobody stood up and took a stand to say that we're not going to tolerate this, because the state's attorney's office was complicit with respect to the Burge torture as they sat outside the door, hearing people scream in agony.
Who sat outside the door?
It's in the special report.
Who sat? Who? Just say
an assistant state's attorney.
Who?
I don't remember his name.
Oh, it's a pretty important fact.
But you're saying it's in the
It's in the Egan report. They said outside the name. They brought these people out tattered. They took their bogus confessions. They went to court. All of these people complained that these confessions were coerced. The state's attorney looked the other way like, oh no, who would ever do anything like that? These people were convicted, sentenced to prison, some death row.
And
it's a problem with that.
The last thing I'll say on it is this, Jeff. In my career, I've dealt with police corruption head-on as a prosecutor, and I've already cited the instances. Where has Howard Brookins been in his entire career until today when he wants to be the next state attorney? He hasn't said a thing.
That is not true.
He hasn't said one word about
that is not
police
true,
corruption.
Bob.
Until
That
now
is not true.
Now he wants to be the state attorney.
4 years ago, I was the only person to stand up in the city council and talk about police corruption and setting forth the police accountability ordinance. I was unable to get any of my colleagues, except for two who are no longer in the council, Dorothy Tillman and Arinda Troutman, to join me in that. After I went to everybody saying that this is a problem. I've worked with the Justice Coalition. I have sued police officers in a civil capacity and got judgments for their wrong actions and wrongdoings under 1983. So don't say I haven't done anything. I've done all I could. I've been a voice. I've been a beacon. You know I haven't shut up about any issues that I feel strongly about, Bob, rightfully or wrongfully, when it was not sexy, when it was not in vogue to do these things, I was talking out about these issues.
What about the 20? Are you one of the 28 aldermen who is suing to get the names of the 662 policemen who have 10 or more complaints? Do those complaints all involve police brutality, or
we don't know,
and
that's part of the problem. Okay. We cannot do adequate.
All you know is these are policemen with 10 or more complaints.
Correct.
Clearly filed by individuals.
Clearly, one of these complaints is in one of the lawsuits has to deal with a police officer putting a screwdriver up his rectum. Clearly, one of those complaints is that guy because he said that he complained. So we don't know as a city council. It's costing the city millions of dollars. We've gone from $20 million in the budget for police misconduct to $45 million this year for police misconduct. We got to stop this.
These names, let me ask First Assistant Bob Milan, you would disagree? You don't think those names should be given to the City Council?
Absolutely not.
Who should they be given to?
Who should they be given to? They should be investigated by us.
Who is supposed to? We're supposed to investigate. What about oversight?
Wait a minute, Howard. Let me talk.
Let
me talk. You spoke enough. All right, so please.
Go ahead.
They should be investigated by us and OPS. Here's why. A lot of those complaints, and we do have them, a lot of those complaints have nothing to do with stealing or batteries or violence or anything of that nature. They have to do, a lot of them have to do with rules violations. Police officers' names should not be published publicly because of things like that.
It's not going to be public. These are just going to the City Council. You could have a protective order that said they can't release anybody. It goes to the
City Council. It's public. I don't care what anybody says. You can't trust.
You can't have a court order.
Not Chicago alderman.
You can't trust your government.
It's going to get out.
You can't trust your government. We should just do away with it and have a king.
It's going to get out. I sure want to give it to you, Howard. I sure want to give it to you.
But if you could do that, if you could get a court order that you trusted so that the City Council would not release it to others, would you then agree with it?
No, they're not an investigative agency. Okay. It should go to an investigative agency because that's the purpose. The purpose is to find wrongdoers.
We are an investigative.
No, you're not.
We are an
Please don't tell me
agency.
that you aldermen are investigative agents.
We have subpoena power. We are charged with oversight. We have home rule authority. We can come up with the same type of ordinance which have the same effect that our state legislator has. And because of that, we are in charge of billions of dollars. And we're in charge with more than 14,000 sworn personnel. We have to come up with rules and regulations. We have to vote on a contract for these particular officers.
Howard, you can't investigate yourselves.
Figure out.
You can't investigate yourselves. I mean, how many aldermen have been indicted?
I don't know. How many have been indicted by the Cook County State's Attorney? What the heck has the State's Attorney's office had to do with public corruption?
You can't investigate yourselves.
I don't agree with that statement, but the more important part is why the public is cynical about what people do is because nobody has been allowing us to do our particular job. And to the extent, if Bob is right, that these things have nothing to do with it, then at least let Mara Georges or the court release what the nature of these particular offenses are. And if they're things like handcuffs too tight, fine, we'll let it go. But I suspect that because they haven't released even the nature of these 10 or more complaints, that is something more sinister, and it's always a cover-up that's worse.
We got to go on. Last time when we talked, First Assistant Milan, we were talking about public corruption And I asked you about a number of matters that the U.S. Attorney is handling, but never picked up by the state's attorney's office. Don Tomczak was there before the mayor was there, and thereafter. And he was prosecuted by whom? By the U.S. Attorney's office. Robert Zorich by the U.S. Attorney's office. So your response to me at that time was, hey, there are a lot of things we do that the U.S. Attorney's office doesn't do. That's true.
That's right.
But is there an argument that the state attorney's office has been not diligent about going after public corruption as it relates to the city of Chicago government? And if that's not true, why did these things only get prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney? Why didn't the state's attorney's office 6 years ago, 12 years ago, find out about it and do something?
Because we have our own investigations, and we can't be stepping on each other's toes. Sometimes we work together, sometimes we work separately. But you're leaving out all of the public corruption cases we did work on, with Burnett from the county, Tom Ryan, the school superintendent.
Anybody in the city of Chicago government, anybody working indirectly or directly under Mayor Daley?
Election fraud cases we've handled. And the federal government does their cases, and we do ours. But we don't ask the federal government to come in and handle our 600 homicides we have a year, or 500 homicides countywide we have a year. They have their job to do, and we have our job to do.
This
Alderman Brookins, you disagree?
Law firm in the state of Illinois.
900
they
attorneys.
Have more than 900 attorneys, more attorneys by far than the United States Attorney's Office. They have overlapping jurisdiction. They haven't had a will to go after it. Minority contractor fraud, not one investigation, not one prosecution. Any of the other hire truck fraud, all of this stuff is costing the city of Chicago millions of dollars, and we decide to let the feds do it. The feds take very few cases. The feds take very few cases. This office has the resources and the personnel to do it, and they decided not to, and that is part of the problem.
Who do you blame for that?
I blame the priorities of the office. I think that they haven't
do you blame State's Attorney Devine for that?
All of the ones who haven't done it.
Do you blame Mayor Daley? Do you think?
All of the ones going back from time immemorial.
What if all these crimes were happening, Howard, and you said you're an investigative
well, you claim
agency?
that
Why didn't you guys investigate it? You just got done telling everybody that as aldermen, you're investigators. Why didn't you do it? You're city alderman.
We have
you haven't done a thing.
Well, one, we can't even get an agreement that they'll turn over the information to us. And so, with respect to me, one alderman out of 50, and I don't have all of the power to do that, Bob. But I'm saying that there's a new breed of people out there. There's a new drumbeat of people trying to do the right thing in city and state government and perform the oversight as it is supposed to happen within our government. And I think that you're going to see these things pressed, and that people will be asked the tough questions.
We got to get out. But is race an issue in this race for state's attorney?
Not that I'm aware.
I would sure hope not.
But let's be realistic here. There are 6 candidates in this race. We've got 2 of them here: Alderman Brookins, right. First Assistant Bob Milan. We got Alderman Tom Allen. We got Cook County Commissioner Larry Suffredin. We've got Chief Deputy in the State's Attorney's Office, Anita Alvarez, and we've got attorney in the private sector, Tommy Brewer, right?
Right.
The 2, you, Alderman Brookins, and Tommy Brewer, are African American, right?
That
All
is
the
correct.
others, 3, 1 Hispanic, Anita Alvarez, and 3 whites, 3 white guys, right? That's race. That is the race here. And we know, to some extent, whether people are Irish or Jewish or whatever, there is an ethnicity to voting, right? We're not going to deny that.
To some extent, but I think
to some extent?
To some extent.
No one, I can say this much, and none of the candidates, for the most part, really have thrown race into the game.
No, you don't have to. You just have to let people know. Let's be realistic here. I'm just trying to be real.
No, and I'm not being naive here. I understand that people do sometimes base their votes on race. I understand that, and I think Howard
most
would agree
popular
with that.
name on a ballot is an Irish name, right?
But
people have changed their names to an Irish name, right?
But at least none of the candidates have played that up, for the most part. And secondly, we're all taking our candidacies to all the people, and I'm certainly taking my candidacy to the African American community and saying that for 21 years, the people that I've represented overwhelmingly are black, and I'm asking for their vote for that reason.
Realistically, what percentage of the black vote do you anticipate getting?
I have no idea. I'm just going to do the best I can. Okay, I'm not going to guess.
5%?
I'm going to go. I'm going to try to get every single vote I can.
Let me ask you, Alderman Brookins, realistically, what percentage of the black vote do you anticipate getting?
We want to get 100% of the vote.
I know you want to get, but what do you anticipate getting?
We would hope that we would be able to get somewhere around 80%.
80%. And you're trying to knock Tommy Brewer out of the race because, let's be real here, one thing is he's African American, you're African American. You anticipate he'd drain some African American votes, right?
No, we don't.
Why are you trying to get him off the ballot? Why are you challenging his petition?
These forums with 6 candidates on the ballot, it's hard to get the true distinction between all of the players.
So you have better forums if you have 5 candidates?
We have much better forums if we have...
and so you pick on Tommy Brewer?
No. We picked on people whose petitions were not in order. More than 60% of the petitions were held to be fraudulent, and I think that is a problem for someone that's running for the state's attorney. But let me answer your question. Mayor Daley carried all the black wards except for 1, and even in that ward he got a plurality. So I don't believe that just because you're African American or you're white that you cannot count on the vote. That people will vote for qualified candidates if you can prove your credentials and you're qualified. And I think that is what Bob is saying.
So you're saying Daley proved his credentials in that race, and that's why he wins so overwhelmingly.
With respect to the people voted, and that's our system.
All right. But you certainly are focusing on the torture issue more than some people would say.
We focus on a lot of issues.
No, but you said last time exclusively the victims of torture were African American. You said that on the show.
That's a fact.
Right.
I can't help it.
So is that more of an issue in the African American community than is up on the North Shore? Do you think?
No. I don't have a different stump speech, and I think Bob will tell you. He's heard me say that with respect to white audiences. He's heard me say with respect to black audiences.
Yeah, but the reason why Howard stresses it is because when it comes down to experience and leadership, he doesn't have it, and that's why he harps
administratively.
On this stuff. That's right.
Because you're saying you're hoping to run an office of 1,500. Howard, this is a legitimate point. Last time on the show, you said maybe you've supervised 12 people before.
But it's
maybe
even,
20.
But Jeff, it's even more than that.
But Jeff,
is that an issue?
Jeff, it's even more than just numbers.
Let the first system.
It's more than numbers. All right. The job that we do is extremely serious, and the power of the office is extremely serious. The power to subpoena, wiretap, indict, and that power must be used judiciously, and it must be learned. Howard doesn't have that experience. He doesn't have the experience to look into a very complicated investigation like the SOS officers or the Brown's Chicken Massacre like I have. He doesn't have it, and I have, and I've earned it over 21 years. And so the reason why he's always talking about stuff that happened back in 1982 and 1983 as opposed to experience and leadership is because he can't talk about experience and leadership.
Let's talk about that. Dick Devine had it. Bob had it under his leadership. They did nothing about these things that clearly have cost the public tens of millions of dollars. It has to be someone in that office. Mayor Daley didn't have it when he came to office, and I don't dare you say that he did a bad job. None of you guys have said that he did a bad job with respect to this. It is not about experience. It is about being able to stand up and do the right thing under tremendous pressure. A lot of them have not been tested and may play to their constituencies. And that is why I believe that we haven't had any indictments or investigations of the public corruption that has been so well noted by the United States Attorney's Office, out of the State's Attorney's Office here in Cook County.
Well, one thing, so you would make this argument, though, about administrative lack of experience about Alderman Tom Allen, I suppose, because he wasn't in the State's Attorney's Office. He had about 10 years as a public defender,
That's right?
But you're still saying he's going to be deficient on the issues you raised?
Absolutely.
And you're going to say Cook County Commissioner Larry Sufferton, who also spent, I believe, some time in the public defender's office, you're going to make the same argument about him?
That's right.
Tommy Brewer, you'd make the same argument?
Absolutely.
But Anita Alvarez, you wouldn't, because she's the chief deputy and she's in the office as long as you've been, right?
Yeah, but there's a big difference in leadership. I mean, none of the candidates, and I want to talk about all of them, none of the candidates were around dealing with wrongful convictions and false confessions like I was. Okay. None of them dealt with the pay raise issue that I dealt with. None of them had to implement mandatory videotaping of interrogations countywide like I had to. And none of them created the DNA review unit to go over old cases. I have a record unique to every single candidate in this race, and that's why I'm the person who's best equipped to be the next state's attorney.
Does the State's Attorney's Office have a good record on diversity?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So
we could do
about,
better.
What is it, about 6%?
About 8%.
8% what?
8% African American.
8%. I thought it was about 6%. 8%.
But what's important?
What about 4% Hispanic? Is that what it is?
What's important to
note?
So
12% Hispanic and African Americans, and you're saying that's a good record?
No, I'm saying we have a good record. We could do better. And listen to me, Jeff.
What would be your goal?
I'd like to do the best we can.
But
listen
any
to
number,
the situation.
20%? That's what Suffern
Listen
says.
to me. All right, only 6% of the graduation rate out of law school is African American. 8% of our lawyers are African American. So we're above the graduation rate, so we're doing fine.
50%.
Let me give the Alderman a chance. We only have a few minutes left.
One last point. The starting salary for an assistant state's attorney after all that law school is $48,000. When they're being offered far more at law firms, it's very hard for us to recruit them and keep them.
50% of the lawyers in the public defender's office are African American. 14% of the lawyers in the City of Chicago Corporation Counsel's office are African American. Lisa Madigan, throughout the state of lawyers, has a better percentage of African Americans. It is abysmal that the
What
state's
number would you
attorney
be
has
targeting?
We would be trying to get numbers that reflect
Give me a number.
the diversity
What number would you be targeting?
within the county. 26. The numbers that reflect the county.
26% African American or
20
African American and Hispanic?
26% African American, 20% or so Hispanic.
So you want the office, in terms
To
of attorneys,
reflect
to be
the
about
county.
half of
We
Hispanic.
want it
Half
to
of that
be-
office as attorneys should be Hispanic or African
We
American.
would like, over the time, to work it out so that that office would reflect the county.
Okay. Let me just go quickly over to guns. I think last time you said, for Assistant Milan, we have enough laws about guns. Is that right?
With the guns on the books, if
The
as
gun
long
laws
as
on
they're
the books
enforced,
enforced, you're okay with
are
that?
very good
You don't
laws,
need more.
yes.
You don't need more laws,
No.
right? You agree with that, Alderman
I said
Brookins?
responsible.
Do we need more laws about gun control?
I think that there are some things that maybe we really need to look at with respect to
What do we need?
to making people responsible for their gun getting in the hands of the irresponsible. I think that we just cannot turn.
Might want to see people be allowed to own a gun to protect themselves in their home. You said that last time.
Right.
You still agree? Still think
Absolutely.
that? Right now you can't. So you'd like to change that law in the city of Chicago, right? Let people own their gun in their home.
I think
to
the
protect
responsible
themselves in the
people,
city of
and we're
Chicago.
not going to change that. Responsible
Okay.
people ought to have the guns. We got to get the guns out of the hands of the irresponsible. We got to stop the hordes of illegal guns from coming into the city. I agree with that. My statement and policy is consistent with respect to that.
Right, but an individual in his home ought to be able to have a gun
If he's
to protect
responsible.
himself. Irresponsible, okay. Capital punishment, you're opposed, you would like
I'm
to...
opposed.
Okay. You said bring it back, lift the moratorium, bring back capital punishment today, right?
yeah, I'm for capital punishment.
You think it
for the
deters?
worst of the worst.
You think it deters?
I think it's irrelevant. I think for the worst of the worst, like the serial killers,
Whether it deters or not, it's just appropriate?
it's for the certain people who've caused so much devastation in our community that it's appropriate for those people for the worst of the
All
worst.
right. We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guests, Alderman Howard Brookins, running for State's Attorney in the Democratic primary, First Assistant Bob Milan. Thank you both so much for coming.
Thank you.
First Assistant to State's Attorney Dick Devine. Of course, he is running in the Democratic primary as well, Bob Milan. Horse race issues. Let me ask you this: who's managing your campaign? Is it the Roosevelt Group, Alderman Brookins?
Holly Hankinson is the campaign
Mike Noonan,
manager.
is he involved in that?
Mike Noonan is
He's
involved.
involved as a campaign manager? What's he doing?
He's over the campaign. He's a senior advisor. I
Noonan's
guess.
always been involved in things with, some would say, Speaker Mike Madigan, Mayor Daley Madigan. They sort of involved because if they didn't want to help somebody, Noonan wouldn't be there, right?
I don't know. I thought he was an independent agent.
So you don't see in any way. You think Daley might end up endorsing you?
I don't know, but
Is he a force behind your campaign?
He is not at this point. He is really neutral, and I think that he's been getting pressure from everybody. I think everybody would like his endorsement. I'm sure Bob would. I'm sure Tom would.
You think you'd get Daley's endorsement, First Assistant?
I'd like to have the mayor's endorsement.
You think you'll get it?
Very much. I have no idea.
You don't know where he's going on this. Okay. Congressman Jesse Jackson today, as we tape, announced, I believe, that he's supporting Larry Suffolk, right?
That is correct.
Is that an anti-Daley move, or what's it about?
I have no idea with respect
Did you
to...
speak with the congressman about getting his
I
endorsement?
spoke to him, and he said he didn't want to... this was about business, and
It's about business, not about race.
We will
Because of course, he's African-American, you're
We
African-American.
will remain friends, but that this was about business. And, I'm glad to have the people that we do have, Congressman Danny Davis, and also Congressman Bobby Rush and Maria Pappas and other elected officials, but we would like to have everybody.
Your base is the African-American community, right?
Our base
Your
is,
base.
is African-American community because that's who I represent.
Bob Milan, 19th Ward, suburbs, what?
Yeah,
What do you-
all the above.
Yeah.
And I'm taking my...
19th Ward isn't very big, so you got to get 19th Ward workers out there to help you, right?
I don't have any 19th Ward workers. I have my own people working for my...